Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about toy rotations or Montessori shelf rotations and why I don't do them on a strict specific schedule. Now obviously do whatever works best for your family, but I wanted to provide some insights why a scheduled toy rotation that is led by the parent may not always be the best option for our child. Now toy rotation is not an inherently Montessori principle. You will always see the pink tower, the brown stairs, the bead cabinet, the bank game available to kids in the Montessori class. However, you may see some rotation in sensorial activities, practical life activities, the art area, especially as the seasons change and the children have different interests or we have different holidays coming up. Now when we work in the Montessori home, obviously we're working with a much more limited space, and in trying to provide our children with a limited number of choices so they're more able to independently select something on their own in a way that is most suitable for their age and their development level. And so the best way to do that without overwhelming our child with a number of choices is by rotating in and out activities as their interest and their development changes. So I'm assuming if you made it this far in your journey, you do know the benefits and sort of how to do a toy rotation or a shelf rotation, and if not, I'm definitely happy to make a video on that. Let me just know down below. But the question always comes down to, when do I do that? Do I do it on a daily basis? Is it a weekly basis? So I wanted to provide my perspective on why a scheduled toy rotation is not going to be the best option for everyone. Now some parents will find their children do thrive in that kind of environment, and if that's the case for you, that's wonderful. But for most of us, we will find that following the child and rotating toys out as we see them lose interest is actually going to be a much better approach. Between the ages of 0 and 6, our kids are actually in a sensitive period for a sense of order, which means they want a place for everything and everything in its place, and if something goes out of routine or out of order, it can be very hard for them to adjust. So for a very cute example of that, when my brother was in that age, he got so used to our Chicago weather being cold and our mom always wearing long sleeves that when the weather started to warm up and my mom started wearing shorter sleeves, he was having a really hard time adjusting to that. He would cry every time he could see her arms because he wasn't used to that. Mom should always be wearing long sleeves. And so while it may be hard to believe that our toddlers really want a clean and organized environment when we see them taking everything out of its place and making a giant mess and then running away to the next activity, I really challenge you to step back and see what happens if you don't interfere for a while. So Stella's favorite activity right now, I'm looking at her little diaper changing area, and her favorite thing right now is to take everything out, and if I wait long enough, because she's seen me put everything back and she knows where everything goes, she actually tries to put everything back. And that's her favorite activity right now, to take all the diapers out of the diaper basket and try to put them back in the diaper basket correctly. Moreover, Dr. Montessori found that kids really like repeating activities even after they've mastered them. If you think about it, it really makes sense because toddlers are living in a world where everything is really difficult, everything is new, they're not able to accomplish a lot of things on their own. So when they're finally able to accomplish a task and do it successfully, it's extremely exciting and incredibly rewarding for them to keep doing it. So how does this fit into the discussion of toy rotation? Well, if you notice your child is constantly going towards the same materials and they're repeating the same materials over and over, even if they've been out for a prolonged period of time, that means they're still either very interested in just being able to accomplish that task, they're still mastering a task that may look like they've mastered it to us, but they don't feel that comfortable with it yet, or maybe they're still really trying to master the task and they're very excited to do it. That's why they're continuously going towards that item. So take, for example, this basket of familiar faces cards. I made this in my DIY video and I haven't taken it out of rotation since then because without a doubt, every single day Stella will come to this. Actually, it's usually on the bottom shelf. She will come to that cube, she will take these out, and multiple times a day she will lay them all out, she will name all the people, she will do her best to do it in both languages, she'll put them back, she'll put the basket back. As far as I'm concerned, she has worked this material to exhaustion, but she's not done with it just yet because as soon as she's mastered saying the people's names, now she wants to lay them out on the rug the way that I lay them out. And after she's figured out how to lay them out on the rug, now she's really interested in putting them back into the basket just right. And after I thought she finished mastering that, now she really wants to be able to hold this particular basket and walk it back to that particular spot every single day and do so without tipping it over and getting all the cards to spill out. So even though to me it looked like she was done with this material, to her there's still a lot of learning to be done with this one material. So even though it's been out for over a month, should I be removing it so I can make space for new material? No, because I see that she's extremely excited every single day, especially with this card, her dad's face, to come down and work with it every single morning. So why would I take that away from her? If we think about that sense of order that our kids are really craving in this age, imagine if they are showing an interest in that item and they come downstairs and they're really excited to work with these familiar faces cards, for example, and I've taken them out of rotation. That can be not only very alarming, it can be very upsetting. It can also give the message that whatever work you thought was important is not important. It can give some very strong messages to our child. Again, obviously your child may be completely fine and they may strive in having a very routine and scheduled toy rotation, so they know that every Monday when they wake up, they will have new items to work with. But for the most part, in following with the principles of Montessori, it makes a lot more sense to wait until our child is no longer going towards that material and has shown to us that they have completed what they think is important with that task before we take it away from them. So how long do we wait before we take that material away? So if it's a material that I have just taken out and I notice that Stella is not touching it at all for a couple of days, I will invite her for a presentation. Even if it's a material that she has previously worked with, she may have forgotten how to use it, or there might be an extension that we can work on. So I will go ahead and do the presentation and I will gauge it from there. If it looked like it was a difficult task and she's not reaching for that material after that, I can then know that that material is too difficult for her at this point, and I will remove it from the shelf. If she almost mastered or completely mastered it during the presentation and she doesn't touch it, I can assume that she has outgrown this material. Maybe I will do one more check later on, just rotate it back in once more later on, and if the same thing happens, I can permanently rotate it out. Or this might have been the one thing she needed to remember or to know how to work with that material, and then she will continue using it for at least a couple of days, if not the entire week or longer. However, if it's a material that I've seen her working on after I've taken it into the rotation and then she suddenly stops touching it, I will wait a couple of days and then I will take it out of rotation, because she has shown to me that she does know what she's doing with it, she has worked with it, and now she no longer wants to do so. And typically I will only do 1 or 2 toy rotations at a time. That way I am not doing an entire oversweep of her shelf, because usually she does still have several materials on the shelf that she's interested in working on, and it's only 1 or 2 that she has lost interest to. Moreover, I've noticed that even if she did lose interest to the shelf completely because she was working on crawling or walking, those gross motor skills, and then she finally came back to the shelf, if I do an entire oversweep of the shelf, she will take everything out and then walk away. Because naturally your child is going to be drawn to the new item on the shelf, and if everything is new, they would like to touch and feel and play and explore with everything, and then they get overwhelmed and then they walk away. So in that case, I still do try to do several items rotated out, but not the entire thing at once. Again, you will need to follow your child on this one, but I found that if it's been several days and I rotate in 1 new item, that's the perfect amount for Stella to always keep a consistent flow of something new and exciting for her, but not be something that is always distracting her from her other work. Now, if you do need some kind of schedule to at least make sure you're staying on top of the shelf rotation, I tend to do a weekly check-in with myself. On Sunday nights, I think about what materials have I not touched with Stella at all? What materials have I noticed that I never had to put back at the end of the night? I've never seen her work on throughout the week at all. And that way I can always make sure that at least once per week I've checked in with myself and I can find 1 or 2 items that we can swap out. Again, I do try to keep track throughout the week of what she is and is not working with, but at least once per week I do have that allocated time, so if the week got extremely busy, I know that I've stayed on top of it at least once throughout that week. But the biggest thing to take away is always to follow the child. And if it happens that the rotation that you've made previously has your child occupied for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks and they're touching every single material, that's wonderful. If they're enjoying it and they're working on those skills and you're noticing them progressing, there's absolutely no pressure to change things up just for the sake of doing a toy rotation. Again, as always, do what works best for your family. You may try several approaches to this, and if you do that, I would just say pick 1 approach per month so you're not changing things up on your child all the time and then you won't know what's working. I hope you found some of these tips helpful, and until next time, I hope you stay safe.